station, where unknown forces strike the edge of ecology.
It's Sunday, June the 9th, 2013, and I'm joined by Peter. And Peter has just got back from the Bilderberg meeting in conference in Watford, London. I didn't go. I had some other things I had to attend to, but I'm looking forward to hearing Peter's story of the weekend. Peter's account of what happened, which I've not heard yet, so it'll be good to hear. So Peter, I'm guessing you're feeling pretty tired right now.
Yes, I am, Martin. Really haven't had any sleep
Yeah.
to speak of, maybe half an hour or so in the tent that I bought yesterday when we went up on the Saturday morning, which was the 8th of June. I know a couple of musicians from a band called Dominator Virus that used to perform in Brighton, and they offered me the chance to go up to an event called the Bilderberg Fringe, which is really a kind of fringe event near the hotel where this year's Bilderberg meetings was being held, a place called Watford Grove.
Yeah.
It's a big sort of hotel in a country kind of park. I think the park is sort of semi-public on the outskirts of it and more private in the middle of it. And it is guys, Wayne and Pete. What happens? Pete was able to drive up, and Wayne sort of looked up the details online about how to get there. I only found out the week before that the Bilderberg meeting was being held in Watford, so I may well have had a look into going up on the train or something. But this came up, and so I just jumped aboard with this, and. There was some confusion about the arrangements where it was. I mean, I think the organisers had to negotiate quite near the time about how to do it. They had an area where you were allowed to sort of stand within sight of the hotel, actually in the grounds of the hotel. But as I said, it's a very big park. If you imagine sort of, I don't know, Green Park in London, something of that sort of size.
Right.
And if you imagine the hotel being in the middle of that, you're on the edge looking into it, and it's on a hill, so you're a fair way back, but within sight. I mean, maybe a kilometre away, something like that. So not too far away, but quite a distance away, Anyway, we set out quite early. We met in a local cafe at sort of between 7 and 8. I got there about 7:30. I found a very cheap tent in a shop, which I bought on the way, bizarrely, so I had that kind of at the last minute to take.
A bit of synchronicity there, perhaps. You found the tent. Cheap.
I was originally just going to kind of rough it for the night or just walk around, and that might have worked in some ways, but in some ways it might not have done. But anyway, we drove up, got to the M25, leaving for Brighton, and we found this place. Unfortunately, the actual camping was away from the actual fringe event. What happened is we thought that the event was, there was a campsite, and then you walk to the event, and it's a short walk. It turned out to be much further than we thought between the places. We got to this campsite, which is on a lay-by off a road, and it's actually a sort of scout place, but it's almost like a little forest and a big field. And there's some weird sort of Wild West type buildings, sort of shacks built there, I think for role play games or something like that. But lots of police sort of, they're a police van on the edge of it as we went in, watching us going in. So they obviously decided to guard it for the weekend.
Right.
And as I said, these were kind of ex-rock band members, so it was a bit Spinal Tap-ish how they got the big tent out and put it up, and kind of that would do sort of thing. It might fall over or not. And this tent I got was a pop-up one, so I just said, well, I think I just put a wire and it comes up, so I'm going to leave it till later on. Anyway, we didn't pay for the campsite at that stage. We just sort of said, oh, sorry, we'll try and get away with this sort of thing. And then apparently it was meant to be a cheap rate for taxis to get to the site, because we realised it wasn't within walking distance.
Right.
We'd thought it was about 3 miles. It turned out to be about 6 miles.
6
away.
miles, wow.
And that was possibly nearer 8 miles.
Oh.
And not walkable. It is all very ambivalent, and it's one of these horrible areas of England where it's all roads, when it's like different roads, and it's very hard to walk anywhere. There's no pavement, you just walk on various verges and roundabouts, and it's all built for the car. We had a car, but we parked it up. We were ringing up this number which was meant to give a fixed price taxi ride for £6. We rang the number. It turned out to be £10 to £15.
Oh, right.
And we were saying, well, we can't do that. We rang another number. It turned out to be the same company. The same guy answered the phone and was saying it's £10 to £15.
Oh dear.
And he seemed to be offering us a minibus or something that we didn't want. And then this was all a bit confusing. And then a car came out because there were other campers there. So we thought, well, we'll wait till someone else drives out. And then the van came up and we kind of flagged it down. And they said, oh, because what we didn't know is could you park on this site, protesters site that we were going to on the edge of this hotel. And they said, yeah, you can park nearby as a parking space. And Wayne was saying, well, we just didn't know any of this, so it wasn't clear on the website whether you could park there or not. So we went to this campsite miles away thinking we had to leave the car there, and it turned out we could have taken it straight to the actual place.
Oh, right, okay.
Although you can't park in this, at the actual protest place, so we would still have had to come back. But again, if luckily, we were able to drive there. Otherwise, if we'd had to walk, it would have been very difficult. Anyway, we abandoned the taxi idea. We got in the car. A couple more were walking out, so we gave them a lift because they had a map. So they were going to walk it, and we said, well, look, we don't think that's practical.
No.
So get in the car. So the 5 of us in the car, which was a bit iffy with the seat belts, but we kind of took a risk on it. And that was fine, Yeah, we drove there. It wasn't too far, when you're driving it, maybe it took about 15 minutes or so. And got to this sort of suburban area. If you imagine somewhere a bit like Patcham in North Brighton, sort of that sort of place, sort of quite nice houses and greenery and that.
Yeah.
But, the police everywhere. But they directed us up onto a grass verge, parked there. They were lining up all the cars. They were all very friendly. We said the police would be exceptionally friendly, that was fine. The 2 other guys had got out before we got to the parking place. Then we just crossed the road, and it was actually the edge of the grounds of the hotel, and they had Group 4 security there, and you had to, put your bags in to be searched, and you weren't allowed to bring bottled water in and all this sort of thing.
Really?
They poured that out, and I managed to get my bottle in. In fact, I did a bit of a trick and got it past them actually. But they did all that. Then they had metal detectors. They frisked us up and down with us. Well, took all our keys off us, and that was said just put your metal stuff out.
Yeah.
Did all that. So it's a bit like going for quite a secure little area. And then once you're inside, you just did a big field really, and there's no food on site available, no water. There's no facilities at all. It said no facilities allowed. It's just a PA system on a little stage. There's a few stalls dotted around. Very little. It's not really much of a festival. It's really just to be there and hear the various speakers that were going to be on. And there was a good lineup of speakers from 12 o'clock right through to 8 in the evening, pretty much non-stop. So you weren't going to be, bored, but you would have to sort of bring your own food and everything. Again, with water, they're saying there's no water on site, but we're not letting you bring liquids in, or not letting you bring in unopened bottles, which is a rule they often have on these sort of things. Anyway, that's all right on some silly hippie festival, but when they have a kind of Group 4 guys enforcing it, it's not quite so nice maybe. No. But anyway, it's fine. We're all thinking, well, it's fine, Anyway, we went in and, it was all a lot of hippie types, alternative types. About 100 yards down, there's a kind of one of those police line do not cross kind of ribbon type things, stretched several hundred yards across. And he said, don't go beyond this point. And there were some flags hung on it and some banners and things on it, about chemtrails and different issues to do with Bilderberg, sort of protester banners that have been put on it. Because obviously the line where you can't go beyond. Then there's kind of a no man's land going across kind of green field, dipping down with a few golf carts dotted around on it, and just sort of various black-clad sort of policemen standing around, not armed. We're not talking about the sort of guys you get outside the Brighton Centre. Those ones with the flat black caps on, just standing around, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I've seen some videos that Alex Jones has uploaded already onto his YouTube channel, and I've seen the police. So these are from different constabularies, I think.
Yeah.
I think they came from all over the country.
Yeah, there was also a sign I didn't notice later, a big red sort of flashing neon type sign to say, do not cross this line or whatever. Right. It was quite funny, yeah. And you can see little fluorescent yellow tabards here and there in the woods on the edge here and there, and a lot of police. In the suburban streets. Anyone who lived nearby must have wondered what was going on, because it was not like some big rock festival or something you might think would need lots of policing or football or something. It just looked like, you know, a little festival going on with no music, no amplified music allowed. They had a PA system and weren't allowed to put any music on at all, not even playing a guitar on it or a tambourine. So
that's a shame.
They did have music, but it had to be acoustic only, away from the microphone.
Right.
So they had a little bit of stuff playing, and but that was off mic, you know. Yeah, we got there. You know, we sat down fairly. I mean, I went around taking some bits of video and stuff. My two friends kind of more or less sat down and got a spot, and then we heard a speaker talking about Bilderberg and stuff like that. I mean, I started recording it, and I recorded all the speeches, in fact, in one more or less one continuous take with a little recorder. But yeah, it started to get a bit more crowded, and that was good. And we had to move down a little bit, and it was good because we wanted to get a bit closer to the stage. We got a better sound level, and we're hearing it better. There's another speaker who was talking about stuff. He wasn't very good at talking loud. We couldn't hear him that well. Then there was, I think, the guy Estelin. Is it David Estelin, or
I'm not sure.
He's been on the Alex Jones show anyway. He's from America. Daniel Estelin, I think he's called. Anyway, he was good. Again, wasn't really talking that loud, but he was good. Then we had some more speakers. One from the the Holly Green campaign. It wasn't really directly to do with Bilderberg, but it was to do with, you know, secrecy and stuff. She was very good. She started to get the going more to the crowd a bit more, getting more of a response. The crowd had built up quite a lot by then. This is probably about an hour into it. Then there seemed to be some sort of disturbance, some yelling and stuff, and we weren't sure what was going on nearer where you had to come in. And there was a sort of a chanting, "Let them in, let them in." And we weren't sure what was going on. And it turned out that, you know, they were sort of limiting the numbers that could come in. And I think what they said is everyone moved nearer the stage and we'll let some more in. And so that seemed to happen. And I think in the end about 2,000 people got into the field we were in, which is about, I don't know, 2 acres, 3 acres, not a massive amount of space, but, you know, it's pretty dense packed. But I reckon about 2,000 anyway. Then the talks got more hardcore. We had Tony Gosling talking. He's a long established Bilderberg researcher. I met Tony before. He's come down to Brighton, and I went and had a drink with him once. But he's written about the Bilderberg group for Nexus magazine, and he gave a very good talk. And in fact, he brought up some very interesting stuff about the A Bridge Too Far, the film, and the incident it was made based on. As you know, it was directed by Richard Attenborough, the film.
Yeah.
But apparently that whole thing in the film, which is basically a true story, but we're just referring to it as a film because you would have probably been more familiar with the film. But it's based closely on reality, is that it wasn't a bridge too far, it was a bridge far enough to do what they had to do. Well, they could have gone further, but they held it and didn't go further in order to keep the war going a little bit longer.
Interesting.
Yeah, and there's a whole theory about it. So Lord Carrington was involved in this.
Wow.
And he was a commander, I think, in the tank, and he wouldn't move forward or something like that. It was quite dense to listen to, and again, it's probably easier to just hear it afterwards. I always find with these sort of things, you tend to get a bit sucked into the ambience of the event, and you can't always concentrate on the exact.
And you recorded these.
Yeah.
We will be uploading them in a separate episode.
We will, yeah, maybe 2 episodes.
Yeah.
Then. I think it may have been a short break then, and yeah, it was getting quite crowded. And then we had, I may be missing out somebody, I don't know, but basically the main speakers, really the big star attractions were David Icke and Alex Jones. And David Icke came on about 5 o'clock, and he gave a really excellent speech. And what was good, he was doing it, you know, within sight of the Bilderberg, so he's actually saying, and that lot over there, and he's pointing.
Yeah.
And you look, and there's the Bilderberg meeting on the hill. So I did some shots with the camera panning to see the Bilderberg meeting back. I think he was live streaming his. It was really, really good, and he got a good response and a huge applause at the end. And obviously you'll hear that when we put it out. And then Alex Jones came after a little delay, a few minutes maybe, and he was hugely well received. Gave an excellent barnstorming style speech. There was a heckler at one point. He seemed to be a drunk who'd seemed to have got in the crowd and started yelling at him and pointing. And Alex had a bit of a go at him, and he was having a go back. And Alex said, right, you want me off, you got yourself another hour. So he just went on longer than he would have done.
Right.
Which was great as far as we're concerned,
that's
you
good.
know. And yeah, I think it was Alex and David had not met. I may be wrong, I don't think they'd ever met before.
That's true. Like, it's the first time they met.
So on the Friday, apparently, we later learned from someone there, they met on the Friday, and you know, they were
had
shaking hands and stuff.
David Icke went back to Alex Jones's hotel room, and they did a Ustream.
Oh, did they? Right.
Which is a website for streaming audio and video live onto the internet.
Yeah.
And they also were on InfoWars. They were on the Alex Jones show. So Alex Jones was actually doing it live from the hotel room.
Oh, that's good.
And he had David Icke in there with him for about an hour.
Yeah.
So it was good. I saw that on Friday.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we didn't. I mean, I didn't see that because I had to get to bed early. But yeah, we saw them both. They didn't get up on the stage together when they did these talks, but they were. You know, you could see them together.
Yeah.
One was backstage, just looking at the other one and enjoying their performances. You know, and I think after that there was a bit of music and stuff, non-amplified. You know,
Acoustic stuff.
You know the way it is quite late in the evening. By then it was about 8 o'clock because their two talks together went from about 5 to about 8 o'clock non-stop, and they were just going for it. You know, and the sun was getting a bit lower, and it was very pleasant. We were able to look across at the meeting. By then that would have been probably in recess in the evening anyway. And they announced there was going to be some sort of social held in a pub somewhere that we could go to, called the King's Lodge, not the King's Head. Apparently there are two pubs of a similar name quite nearby. There were some directions how to get there that weren't entirely memorable to me, but we did sort of know them well enough to get there. Again, it's all these sort of B roads and A roads without much pavement and roundabouts and garages. It's not the nicest sort of country area to walk around when you're on foot walking around, but you know, it's about a mile or two away. It wasn't that far, but it wasn't ridiculous. And we were worried we might not get into the pub because again, 2,000 of us. What we didn't realise is that apparently outside 2,000 more wanted to come in and had been gathering while this was going on, and we were lucky we got in early.
And they weren't allowed in.
They weren't allowed in at all until the event. What happens when basically David Icke ended? There was still some hippies driving around with drums and this sort of thing, and probably went on because they had the site all night probably to do what they wanted pretty much, or maybe they had to clear it, but there was no rush to get off it. They carried on, but we left around 8 anyway because we wanted to get to this pub, and there were people still being searched with scanners and stuff to be let in. And they were letting them in, as we thought, into like an empty field,
really. An empty field,
with nothing going on, you know.
That's mad.
I thought that was a bit off, you know. They were waiting to get in. As we came out, suddenly there was space.
Yeah.
And they were being let in. To be fair, you couldn't have got many more in there in one go. And suddenly I think the word had spread, or maybe a lot of them came along later, and you thinking we're just coming on for the evening. But everybody.
Doesn't sound like there's a lot going on though after 8ish.
Well, the evening they might have thought we'd come at 6 or 5
and
just see the evening, but you couldn't do that. You had to get in there early, and if we hadn't got in there when we did, well, maybe we could have come about an hour or two later. We wouldn't have got in at all, you know. Yeah, we went out. Then we started wandering along various the road. A few of us sort of gathered up and wandered along, crossing the road in a gang. You know, the way you do with these roads with no crossings to get to this pub, and we found an area again a bit like a village. It was I guess it's the edge of Watford, quite a nice little area of traditional kind of English type houses and a couple of pubs, that sort of thing. There was a newsagent. I didn't go in, but the other two went in, and they had a look at the local Watford paper that apparently had been a bit disparaging of protesters, apparently shouting at politicians disrespectfully and this sort of thing. I don't know exactly what it said because I didn't even go in the shop, but I said, was it worth getting a copy? It was 90p, and we thought it's not worth spending the money anyway. So we went over to this pub, which was the King's Lodge, and this was really interesting. It's a really old pub. We went in, and it's very low ceiling, and actually it's 1649 is when it was built. It's got a big old fireplace, it's 1649 over it, and a coat of arms. And the ceiling was all low and bulgy, and there were lots of plaster it's like squares of plaster, and there were like bas relief images in it, like crowns and a lion with a crown on, a fleur de lis, that sort of thing. So it really was really oldie worldy. In fact, Alex Jones goes on about 1776, but this pub was about 100 years older than that even,
Yeah.
which is quite amazing, And it was quite a long queue, obviously, as you'd expect to get served, along sort of literally.
Must have been packed.
Well, it was funny because it's quite a long pub, so it was like a very long room. And so the queue went all the way down one side, and there were chairs on the other side. One of us, I think Pete, got in there in the queue. Me and Wayne were hanging around, having a chat, and then this must have been about 9 o'clock by then. Just beginning to get dark. Then Alex Jones actually came in, interestingly enough, and went, "Oh, hi," and all this sort of thing. But he wasn't hanging around. He just came in, and he had his photo taken by somebody who just wanted to snap with him. Then he kind of went up to the front, made a bit of a joke, and. He wanted to get drinks for his crew, which was nice of him, but he said he wasn't hanging around, so
The queue was a bit too large, really.
Well, we let him, everyone let him get to the front.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, because he just said, "Oh, you mind if I queue bust," or something like that. And he said, "Yeah, go up there," and he just I just want to get drinks for my crew, and he said, "I'm all right for a beer." I think he had somewhere else to go. We later found out he was going to dinner with David Icke, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But what's nice is Gareth Icke, David's son, actually came to the pub. And actually played some songs in the garden, so that was nice. That had been advertised at the actual event. That going on to the pub, you could hear Gareth Icke playing some songs. So he played the one you might remember, anyone who was at or heard our little broadcast of David Icke's talk at the Wembley Arena last year. One of the ones at the end, he played a very distinctive song. He played that one, and a few others, about 5 or 6 songs he played actually, just on a guitar. But it was slightly amplified. It wasn't with his band, but it was. He had a little amplifier just to bring it out a little bit more.
Yeah.
So that was really nice. And we were having a talk about conspiracies and all this, that, and the other. And then we decided. I don't know why, it was getting a little bit crowded. We couldn't really get a seat. We thought, well, it's getting a bit cold in the garden. We'll go in, and we thought we'll go and check out this other pub, because remember we said about the other King's pub.
King's Head.
The King's Arms, I think it was. And that was King's Head, yeah, over the road opposite this newsagent. So we just went over and had a look in there. It's funny, because Wayne saw it, he said, "It looks like nothing's going on in there." Bear in mind, it's a Saturday night. There was a slight glow of light in there. So just 3 of us who went in. Pete opened the door and went in, and they could tell this is very funny the way they tell it. And we just went in. It was like pretty empty. There's like 2 guys in there, just with pints of beer and a barmaid.
Right.
And they all sort of just looked round at us, stared at us. And the barmaid just said, "Oh, we're terribly sorry. It's a private party tonight."
Oh dear. Really?
So we just sort of went, okay. We turned and walked out. Then we just laughed because we realised, of course, it wasn't any sort of party.
Of course not. Yeah.
If it was, it's the saddest party you ever saw.
Yeah.
So we think we'd been clearly excluded there.
Yeah.
And the third pub in the village, that was apparently another private party. Someone said that we didn't go into that one. So, this one that we went to was obviously the one that decided to cash in.
Right.
It was only charging $2.50 a pint as well.
That's not bad.
So it's very good, yeah. But the funny thing was, there were lots of police actually in this little village. It was, it looked like something out of the Avengers, that sort of comedy, science fiction, thriller series from the 60s, when they always used to go to a village. It was always deserted, and there was never any sort of extras employed. It was just the main actors, and you might have weird sort of, soldiers or something walking about. It was just empty. There were no normal people around. There was just us, and there were just policemen standing in yellow tabards, 5 or 6 on each corner of the village for no reason. Just a completely empty village. It wasn't like it was anywhere near the Bilderberg thing. I mean, it's hard to know where we were geographically by then, but we must have been quite a bit away from it.
Yeah.
And they were just really friendly and saying, "Oh, hello, how are you? How are you?" But they were just standing there in these yellow tabards. But it was kind of odd. What were they expecting us to do? Take over the village, because we'd come away from the actual hotel. So we thought that was all kind of strange anyway. So we decided to go back into the King's Lodge. So we got another pint in there, yeah, and a friend of ours actually from Littlehampton, Keith, the cyclist.
Yeah.
You met before. Yeah, he actually appeared there suddenly, and he'd actually cycled up from Brighton all the way to Watford.
Wow.
And he booked actually a hotel in Watford for £60, so he was going to have a bit of luxury for the night. yeah, we think he'd seen some of the event, you know. But then we had to think eventually we got to start getting back. So yeah, we headed off back to found the car, and then drove back in the dark to this campsite place that by then was, you know, a more mysterious kind of location we went in. And bear in mind, we hadn't actually, like I said, hadn't actually paid to go in. We were kind of thinking we might kind of try and pull a fast one, but it's only this kind of guy with a red luminous cone sort of came to the window and sort of flagged us down and said, "You're right there, sir, how are you?" and all this sort of thing, very jolly, you know. We're not sure if he's a policeman or quite what he was, but
G4S maybe.
well, earlier on, our kind of scout guy had given us very vague directions to the site, but we had the feeling that he wasn't being that helpful, and that they were just kind of using the site, really letting us use it, but they weren't particularly sympathetic. They were kind of just letting us use it, but you know, so we had to pay £5, you know, each for the camping then.
Right.
We were having a bit of a kind of, like I said, a bit of a rock and roll kind of approach to some of this, because very serious how we could have like gone round the back and whipped the tent down and got it in the car and driven off, not paid and things like that. But we hadn't seen this, so I think in the end we just decided it's best just to go in and you know, well, what we had been worried about, yeah, we were a bit tight on money, as probably you understand from the way we were explaining the story. We were all doing it on a tight budget. We could afford it, but on a tight budget. And you know, the taxi business earlier, we'd already been nearly stung by that. And if we had to get the taxi back, it would have been £15 back and all this sort of thing. And so we didn't pay that. We ended up paying for the camping. And it was actually a nice site. I don't want to knock this campsite. It's clearly for scouts and for being a bit more sort of self-contained. But there's no water, no toilets, literally nothing. It was just a field with, you know, sort of weird cabins at one end of it that looked like a Wild West saloon or something built there. I don't know if it was for some sort of, like I said, playing games in or something. It was just kind of weird, a bit like a sort of abandoned little film set or something.
Bizarre.
Yeah, it was quite strange. Anyway, we got back to the tent, and yeah, their one hadn't fallen down. Mine, I pulled a rope and it all expanded out like it was meant to in a kind of igloo type thing, and I got in there. It was freezing cold, and even though it's June and that's global warming for you, maybe, I don't know. Anyway, but I don't think any of us slept very well. My brain was kind of racing on it anyway a bit, you know, and we didn't know when the thing would end tomorrow, and in fact earlier today as it is now, explaining this in the evening, I think the actual event was meant to go on to about possibly 3 in the afternoon. That's how long we had the sort of protest field for. But as it happened, I think there was a rumour that they were all going to leave early in the morning, the Bilderbergers. So none of us slept that well, so we were up early really, and we packed the tents up, and then we went back down, drove down the same route we did before, parked in the same way. We were all literally frisked again and given all the metal detector business again. Even though there was far fewer, there was only about 50 people there the next day compared to 10,000, sorry, not 10,000, 2,000 the day before. So, you know, it's a big empty field. In the far right corner, what there is for this hotel is a very long road that comes down from it into a dip, goes over a bridge, over a canal, then it comes back up a bit, and that comes right up to where this sort of police line fence is that we were allowed to go up to. Then it just turned slightly right to the gates onto the road, and that's how they go out. But we've stood there for about an hour, and only one car came out. There's rather a weak megaphone merchant having a bit of a go at things, but he just didn't have the technique. He was no Alex Jones, sadly, so we were kind of wondering if this wasn't quite where the action was, or maybe things hadn't quite worked out that we could see them leaving. And I think either they were lying low and didn't leave then, or they left a lot later, or maybe they'd all left a lot earlier, because we only saw one car come out at that stage. 1 or 2 went back in, and we think there may have just been staff going in to clean the hotel or something. Then a youngish guy came along, and he said, well, I think the other day he'd gone round the other side of the hotel and tried to take some photos of a certain spot, and he'd been moved on, but I think he may have seen some cars going in then. So it seems to me that maybe the other side of the hotel was where maybe they were leaving from, and the bit that we were allowed to stand in it had line of sight to the hotel, but maybe it wasn't overlooking the actual exit route that they were going to use.
Right.
So they could well have driven out on another side, and we missed that, or it had all happened earlier. I think we were just thinking, well, we're going to call it a day by then, get down and try and have something to eat somewhere. So we headed off across to the car. But then bizarrely, at that point, a very heavy black, not quite a Hummer, but a black, one of those angular type of, bit like a black Range Rover with blacked out windows,
Yeah.
that sort of thing, or something like a small Hummer type car, can't really say what the make was, actually turned out of the gate and just came past us. And again, it's well explained by my friend, it's probably better than me, but Wayne actually said, he thought the police suddenly looked a bit worried that we'd crossed the road and right next to it, and he came right past us three. We just gave it a salute sort of thing.
Right.
And Wayne swears to seeing someone inside behind the dark glass just giving a little wave.
Interesting.
So we don't know who that was, if it was some security or some Illuminati with a bit of a sense of humour just coming out, but they'd obviously got out of the gates and were driving off. So at that stage we got in our car and drove away from the place really. We thought that was about all we could do. We got down to, we found, because it's Sunday morning, it was still quite early, about 11 or 12. We found a kind of wimpy style kind of cafe type place, and we had chips and a tea and sat and talked about conspiracies and stuff in there for about half an hour or so, and talking about various stuff that happened at the weekend, bringing up other related things like Kubrick and different sort of conspiracy theories like that we were interested in, just for a bit of a break. And then we drove back really, and that was kind of it really.
So did you feel then that it was what you were expecting, or was it perhaps not quite what you were expecting? I mean, how did you feel? Was it an event that you think had any sort of significance, or
well, in speeches? For me, I felt it was better than I expected in terms of the whole experience of getting there. We got to see the actual venue.
Yeah.
Yeah, we clearly had sight of that. Anyone who drove out, you're just going to see a car with dark windows. We did see a car with dark windows. So we saw that. We're not going to see anyone come out and say, hi, I'm Henry Kissinger, or I'm somebody else, I'm going to come and have a chat with you guys,
Oh, no, I know.
I wasn't expecting that. So no, I saw David Icke, I saw Alex Jones. I mean, shame Alex couldn't have stayed in the pub. I think probably he wanted a bit of privacy. He might have got mobbed by everyone, but in fact, he probably would have had a chat with everybody if he had many calls on his time. But Gareth Icke gave the music. That was great. We saw well-known names in the conspiracy business, to put it like that. Lovely countryside setting. We were there when something was going on. That's all you could be as part of a bigger picture. It's very worthwhile. I would say it's about what I would expect, probably a bit more than really. Alex was saying, yes, it's a historic day because it's a lot more people turning up. I mean, the Bilderberg demos originally used to be a lot smaller, or was just Jim Tucker, I think his name is, doing it originally. He just brought attention to Bilderberg, and it seemed to be like one lone man bringing it up, and then it's got to be quite a big thing. It's a byword now for sort of conspiratorial, shady meetings, so it's almost like they now bring attention to themselves doing a Bilderberg meeting rather than just doing some other type of meeting. I mean, one thing I can say that may be of interest, on the same day I was originally going to go to another event in Hyde Park that was held, I think it's about hunger in Africa, and it was just going to be a day out in London, a kind of with a bit of a left-wing kind of demo thrown in somewhere. I didn't really know much about what it was. I just thought I'd go to it, but then I heard about the Bilderberg, so I changed my plans. But it turned out that Bill Gates was talking at that thing in Hyde Park, and obviously his intentions have been well documented in conspiracy circles towards population control and stuff, and don't need to be repeated here. So he was apparently cheered. In fact, he was cheered by that audience. We heard it on the radio in the car in the evening that had happened. While obviously Bilderberg is going on, it's clear, of course, he went to both. Clearly, he's not going to come to London just for some sort of fluffy event in a park, so he clearly came to Bilderberg mainly. So that definitely connected the two there in my mind. But he came to one to sort of get cheered, and at the other, if he'd shown his face in front of us, he clearly would have been met with a barrage of criticism, you know. So that was interesting. There are other things going on, you know, in London.
Yeah.
With that hunger summit, I think it was being held, and the G8, I think, is in Ireland next week. So that sort of seems to follow on. So is Bilderberg setting the agenda for the G8? And that seems to be what was going on, among other things, I'm sure. But
there was a big oil deal as well, apparently. Shell and BP. I think there's a merger of some type. So it will be the biggest merge in corporate history.
Oh yeah.
So there was one of the things that apparently may have been going on at Bilderberg was discussions around that. I think Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg was there. I'm not sure. I'm not 100% on that actually, but there were definitely Facebook representatives.
Well, Eric Schmidt was there apparently.
Eric Schmidt, CEO of Google, he was there.
Yeah.
So Alex Jones was saying Google have a real big piece of this now, the piece of the pie really. That they're very involved in Bilderberg, and I think that hotel, Alex Jones was saying that hotel where they had the Bilderberg conference this year was apparently, according to, I'm not sure where Alex Jones got this from, but he was saying that Google used that hotel a lot for conferences and to have big meetings, and they had something to do with the golf. The events that happened in the Middle East, the kind of the uprising and all the start of this kind of domino effect of countries, such as Syria, kind of losing control and these rebellions kicking off. So Google orchestrated that, and things were planned in that hotel, according to Alex Jones. But like I say, I'm not sure where he's got that info from. I've not seen the article, but it's interesting nonetheless.
Yeah, because it's called Watford Grove. We kept thinking, Bohemia Grove. It's very easy to kind of... we end up thinking, is it the Bilderberg Hotel? Which, of course, there is a Bilderberg Hotel. It used to be. I don't know if it still exists, where they held the first meeting, and that's where the name comes from. So you'd think they'd really have their own venue for it, build a venue and just keep to that, really, or have it on an island somewhere without the kind of protests. They may have to do that. It wouldn't surprise me. But... they can't afford to close the whole area off. I mean, I should add that although we were behind this rather flimsy fence, that was really just to keep us in the area we're meant to be. And in fact, no, I forgot to mention, someone did actually jump through it and do a runner into the Bilderberg area. But nothing much happened. There was a little bit of running around with some police, and she got kind of taken back.
Right.
But I got a bit of video of that. That's quite exciting to watch, and definitely has a slightly iconic feel to it. You know, that was... that was quite late on the Saturday before we were going to go to the pub. I just sort of hung around a bit longer than I think the others wanted to. I have a feeling with these things sometimes you just need to hang around a little bit longer and you sometimes get things going on when things stop happening, the events. You get people going off and doing their own little bit of something. It almost looked for a minute like there was going to be a kind of mass pushing over the fence. Like I said, it's two bits of ribbon. There was a bit of it was metal, but it wasn't really a barrier. It was just a sort of a division, really. But it was just agreed not to go over it. But if you had gone over it, you would have had to run downhill about 300 yards, 400 yards, I don't know. But there was a canal there, so you'd have to get over a canal. Then you have to go up a hill again, another 300 or 400 yards. Then you would get to what is the real barrier. There was like a metal fence actually round the hotel, which had been put up. And that was well in the distance. When Alex Jones was in Chantilly last year, they were allowed to go right up to that metal fence, so they were able to sort of shout and be heard inside. But this time around, they'd put that fence around, and they had another zone around that, which you couldn't go in, and that's where they had the dotted policemen standing around, and these golf carts moving around bizarrely as a kind of form of transport, really. Like I said, they weren't armed or anything. They weren't going to do much. But I guess if you had ran in there, you would then be sort of rounded up, or some other force would come in and be like sheepdogs coming in and would have chased you off. You know.
I think there's a G4S security element there, and then you've got the police as well.
Yeah.
And I think Alex Jones mentioned that also there's some Bilderberg security as well that are always at the Bilderberg events. They're like their own security team
Yeah,
almost.
wouldn't surprise me.
Some
yeah.
sort of complement of security there. So you've got like an inner circle of security. So the police are very much the first layer of it, I think, from what I've seen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not saying we should have done that. It might have been fun to have a go. It may have been that the organisers of the event would have gone into trouble themselves. They'd be given this field out of goodwill, possibly. That's fair enough. And you don't want to get the organisers into trouble if so I think that may not have been a good thing to do. I'm just saying, it may have been amazing if it had, but for a second it looked like something was going to kick off like that. It didn't happen, but I like the fact that somebody did jump over and run a little bit. It gave it a kind of a bit of a moment of symbolic kind of sense of having invaded the space. But if you'd done that, all you would have done, even if you managed to run all the way up there, we would have just got to a metal fence. That would have been tougher to tackle, really. But it would have been possible to then shout maybe and be heard, But,
I think they were erecting that last week as well.
Yeah.
It was a real last minute job, that fence.
Yeah.
Because Alex Jones went up to, he filmed the guys actually building it.
Oh yeah.
And he's made a joke with them. They were having a laugh with him back. They were just these guys being told to build a fence.
Yeah.
But apparently they worked all through the night to get it done.
Oh yeah.
So this was when Alex Jones first touched down in the UK, so I guess the 5th of June.
Yeah.
5th or 6th, something like that.
Well, the hotel was only booked by Bilderberg for like 3 days, I think.
Yeah.
So everyone had the membership of the gym or whatever suspended for 3 days.
Right.
And told we will add that to your membership, but you can't come in those 3 days, So they obviously couldn't lock the whole place down, and they've still got other business going on up to that point. So obviously it has to be put up quite quickly and taken down quite quickly.
There was talk of David Cameron, wasn't there, attending?
Yeah, apparently he did. I don't know anything about that. I've only heard it as a rumour, So
yeah, I'm not sure if I've not checked the news today, but I'm not sure. I think he may have attended. I think it was something that it was a last minute announcement that David Cameron would attend.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, it's nearby London, isn't it? What way he would have been driven in, and I don't know. But there was a helicopter. I mean, which ought to add, hovering around most of the time. In the morning, though, this morning, we did note. After a while, we kind of thought, actually, it's an interesting point that the helicopter isn't there, which may have been telling us something. That maybe the actual delegates had gone by then because there was no helicopter. But at the same time, there was a lot less protesters at that time. There was only about 50 to 100 maybe, as compared to 2,000 the day before, plus the ones that couldn't get in. So maybe that was just some sort of crowd control type thing they had going on.
Yeah, precisely. Or maybe there was something going on in London. They needed the helicopter for some other incident.
No, I wouldn't have thought so, because I think it had been chartered to do this.
Dedicated for Bilderberg, so.
Yeah, and if anything, there was, like I said, the Hyde Park event on Saturday in London that I could have gone to, and that would have possibly needed to be marshalled as well. Yep. So they obviously had a lot going on that day. So whether they did all their stuff on the Friday and Saturday and got out on the Sunday, or maybe they just laid low and came out much later, I don't know. I think they probably had gone by the time. Well, this morning, I think they quite probably had gone by another exit. Because like I said, this guy who seemed to be a local said he had been moved on from another entrance, I think on the Friday when he tried to stop and take some photos. And he seemed to be saying that was a way out and there were cars there and they could have gone in and out of a driveway there. But I didn't go over that side of the hotel, so I guess, after the Bilderberg event, anyone passing around Watford, it's a lovely bit of countryside there. You can certainly walk around a lot of it, I think. You could go and have a wander up to the hotel and have a coffee in there and just say you've been to the Bilderberg site to maybe get some insight into the geography of this. Maybe if you're wanting to investigate what maybe did happen a little bit from what we're saying. But obviously with the restrictions we had, we were unable to do that. Because it is a big park, you would need to sort of take a packed lunch and wander around and explore it, and then I'm sure. I mean, anyone could pop into a hotel and have a coffee. So why not go in and have a look and see what it was like? But for what we could see, you know, it was just a building in the distance. So we're only kind of making educated guesses and picking up rumours a lot of the time. And that's the best you could do really when you're out. But I think it's good when something's going on to actually get there and be part of it if you can. And I'm very glad we did. We were all glad we came up. And it was a bit last minute how we knew about it. And even, you know, the whole event had been brilliantly organised by the those who put it together. But obviously at some short notice, you know, with the campsite being a long way away, stuff like that. If you hadn't had a car, in all honesty, it would have been very difficult to follow the map on the website and make it there. Really, it would have been very difficult and dangerous to pitch a tent and then try to walk to the site. So, but I think we were lucky to see as much as we did. Really, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, great. Well, that was interesting. And looking at all the videos and we're going to be uploading episodes soon with the audio for the talk, some of the talks that the people gave, the David Icke, Alex Jones, etc.
Yeah, the primary content, you know, we weren't in the Bilderberg meeting. I mean,
No.
obviously, if you were, you'd have brilliant things to report. You wouldn't be allowed to report them. That's the trouble, unless you didn't want to go back ever. And well, then maybe that's a good thing to do. Get in there and come out and report it all. Some of it has been reported, but you know, not in great depth, I don't think. But I think all that happens allegedly is if you come out and report it, you just never get asked back. But I think those who get the really heavy stuff probably want to go back, you know.
Yeah.
But in terms of what we went to see, our Bilderberg, to put it like that, you know, yeah, excellent talks, hours of it, and took a lot in at the time, but it's all been well recorded. We've got recordings and video of it. Obviously, it was live streamed, as it happened. I think David Icke did a stream of his, Alex did a stream of his. I consider there are other good speakers too. Tony Gosling was particularly good. There's a very good comedian too who I recorded, very funny man who came from Middlesbrough. He was really, really excellent. Very rude, and he swore a hell of a lot. And again, an audience member started to shout him down and said, "Stop swearing," and this sort of thing. And that was very entertaining. Yeah, it wasn't all po-faced. You know, there's some good bits and bobs going in there too. You know, entertaining stuff. I mean, they couldn't do amplified music, but they did have a guy who did an Om type session. You know, that kind of note that is very spiritual, kind of a druidy, kind of a priest type guy.
Yeah.
And he did that, and everyone did that, and that was a lovely moment as well. That again may or may not come out in any recordings that are released, but that was a nice moment. And there were other things like that, little bits of humour dotted in between, bits of poetry and rap artists coming in, filling in the little gaps between the main speakers. Yeah, I mean, I've given a slightly, you know, truncated account. Obviously, you know, this is many hours, 8 hours of speakers. We're not sure who spoke on the Friday. We weren't there on the Friday. Apparently, there were some speakers, but they weren't so high profile. And Brian Jerish, we hoped to see. He apparently was, you know, at Watford somewhere doing his own reports. I'm not sure if he tied up with this particular event or not, but I did look at the UK Columns website. Yeah, he had stuff he was putting out from Watford. So that was another source of information that might be worth looking into.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, thanks for that, Peter. That's great.
The information where unknown forces strike the edge of ecology.